Welcome again to Paramaribo, Suriname, host of the 2019 HFLD Conference on Climate Finance. Our next guest is Ms. Latonya Williams from the Forestry Unit, Bahamas. Welcome, Ms. Williams.
Thank you.
It
Thank
is
you for
your-
having me.
It's your first time in Suriname?
It is, actually.
How long have you been in Suriname?
I've been in Suriname from 11 last night.
Oh,
I
wow.
arrived at my hotel at 3 this morning.
You haven't seen much of the country yet.
No, but I'm excited for the field trips.
Very good, very
Yes.
good. Welcome to Suriname.
Thank you.
Could you tell us a bit more about the Bahamas?
Sure. For those of us who may not know, the Bahamas is located just off the coast of Florida. We are an archipelagic nation. We are surrounded by water, made of many islands. About 22 of our islands are inhabited at the moment. Most of our forests are in the northern Bahamas. We would say that's the pine forest. In terms of our other forest types, we have what you would call deciduous forest, or we call it coppice.
Wow.
Yeah. And we have mangrove forest, of course. So those are our three main types of forests in the Bahamas, as well as we're known for our beautiful beaches.
Wow.
The world famous Atlantis and now the Bahamas. But
Or
we
the
are,
pink sands of
yes,
the Bahamas.
absolutely.
Yes,
And that's,
very
you can
good.
actually find pink sand on Eleuthero.
Wow.
That's one of our central islands.
Very
One of
good.
the bigger islands, but it's in the central Bahamas.
I would love to go there sometime.
You should, come on.
You have 22 islands that are inhabited.
Yes.
Even more than that.
Yes.
We cannot imagine that from here. We are on the continent of South America, so we cannot imagine how to travel from the islands.
Yes, yes. We actually, we have this mantra, it's about 700 islands, rocks, and keys.
700 islands.
Yes,
Wow.
about, like I said, 21 to 22 of those are inhabited.
Wow.
Yes.
Impressive.
Yes.
The Bahamas is actually a CARICOM country. You are
Yes.
one of the small island development states as well.
We are.
And as such, just like Suriname, you are threatened by climate change, rising of sea level, etc. What do you hope to gain from this conference, this HFLD conference?
This conference is timely for myself personally, as well for the unit, the forestry unit that I work in, as well as for my country. Personally, I'm interested because I understand the implications climate change has on us. In forestry, we understand because we can comprehend what protecting our forests can do to help with mitigation and adapting to climate change, as well as we understand how it can protect us, especially from sea level rise. Our mangrove forests, like I said, are very important to our coastal areas, and most of our coastal areas are inundated with mangroves, and these are often the first areas to be impacted by a storm surge or something. So this conference allows us to evolve that discussion in terms of advancing our discussions, more or less to implement some things, to get some things happening, to execute some things, and to actually get things going, get the discussion going on with climate change in the country, because we're talking about it, but now we need to be doing more about
we need
it.
to work together to get
Yes.
something going.
Exactly.
Wow. I know that the Bahamas had a problem with your industrialization, where the industry destroyed a lot of the forests. You had a lot of deforestation, but then the government of the Bahamas came back with a policy to rejuvenate the forest. Could you tell us more about that?
Sure. For those who aren't familiar, the Bahamas has had an extensive logging history. We like to use the word exploitation because in many instances it was. That was mainly our pine forests as well as our hardwood trees, but the latter was the pine forest types, where just about all of the trees were harvested, whether it was for mulching, timber, and things of that nature. Yes, the Bahamas does have an extensive history of forest exploitation. We actually had several companies in, I think it was the early 1900s and the late 18th century, where companies were actually granted licenses to extract the pine forest. And in many instances, it was a large-scale operations. And so from that, we've learned. We don't want any large-scale activities to be happening in the country anymore, but we are encouraging small-scale sustainable industries. to the extent that the government has enacted new forestry legislation,
Oh.
thankfully. We have the Forestry Act that is currently actually being amended now to make us not just a unit, but a forestry department, and that would give us more leeway and leverage to access funding.
Yeah.
um, uh, to access funding, as well as to make sure that we set in place the policies and the framework to ensure that the forest areas are protected. And so we are actually also in the process of establishing the National Forest Estate,
Wow.
which would include, as I mentioned, the forest types. We have the pine forest, our coppice, as well as our mangroves. And we want to have two types of forests. We have our conservation forest, where we would more or less preserve in situ that area and any other ecological, biological, or scientific aspects of it. And then we have our forest reserves, which because we don't want to just protect it, we understand the persons who want to utilize the resource, and as it stands right now, the forest does need a thinning. And so one of our ways with dealing with our forest mensuration and silviculture is actually through a thinning exercise. And so we're encouraging persons to actually come in and apply to the Forestry Unit to see what options are available to start a small scale business.
Oh, wow.
And those are really exciting because they not only get persons involved in forestry, but they help to employ the communities around these areas. And persons get an appreciation for what forestry is, not just hearing about what forestry is, but they can see it.
You build the awareness together.
Exactly. So
Very
they
good.
see how to use it in a sustainable way. They can see how they can benefit, and they can see how it can also help be profitable, make them
It's
profitable.
so interesting for us to hear, because we are in the same boat right now. There's a lot of logging going on, and there's a lot of illegal logging going on as well. For us to monitor, and also for the same HFLD states, we all have the same problem. You have to find the balance between what you can use for development and what you can use for preservation, conservation.
Absolutely.
And I'm so glad to talk to you today about this. Our president, he committed the country to 93% forest coverage, and we are very excited about that. We know that you are starting the program to reforestation. Do you have any targets for the coming years for your allocating of the forest, for maintaining of the forest?
So with the establishment of the National Forest Estate, we want to have large areas of crown lands, that's the government-owned lands, protected. And so the aim is to have, in the northern Bahamas, we have our pine islands. So right now our focus is the pine forest and protecting where the pine forest stands are. And that's mainly because we have a lot of deforestation, we have a lot of human activities affecting those. And so the aim is to actually get the National Forest Estate declared, actually gazetted and accepted by Parliament. If we can get that done, that would be a start to what is to come. Because we need it protected, but you still have to manage the resource.
Yes.
So it's
So
important.
how do you, I think those are the uninhabited islands you're talking about.
No, these ones are actually in the northern Bahamas. These are the ones where humans are.
Oh,
where
okay.
humans see trees as impediments to their development. And so we want to encourage a way that we actually have forests that are protected, already designated. More or less, it's us in a slight way encouraging land use planning.
Yeah.
Because in this way, we would have designated areas for forestry activities, we would have designated areas for conservation as well. And through this, we would actually have designated areas for housing developments and other aspects of land use, because that's very important.
You have the same challenges as we do.
That's very important.
But you are so much further in legislation and...
But what I appreciate is your governments put the will. You know, that's what's important. We come to these conferences many times and we make commitments, but at least you've made a commitment on an international scale, and you are actually trying to find ways to help meet that commitment.
Yeah.
So that's very important. And so in terms of the Bahamas, while we have our legislation, it's important for us now to get these areas protected, and so we can actually get some things going on the ground.
Oh, very good.
Yes.
We need to work much more together for these issues to be solved. I thank you so much
Thank you.
for your coming here, and I
Thank
hope
you.
we can continue the conversation about
Yes.
the issues. That's
Absolutely. Thank you
Thank
for having me.
Thank you so much.
Okay.